Thus have I heard on one occasion the Blessed One was living at Vesali in the great wood in the hall with the peaked roof. Now on that occasion a number of monks had declared final knowledge in the presence of the Blessed One thus. We understand birth is destroyed, the holy life has been lived. What has had to be done has been done. There's no more coming to any state of being. Sunakkhatta is kind of an interesting character because he became a monk, but the reason that he became a monk was so he could spend his time looking at the Buddha. And he wasn't doing any practice, or he was just hanging out, basically. Anytime the Buddha came around, he would go get close to him as he could. And the Buddha scolded him and told him he had to go away, and he became so upset that he disrobed. But he'd still come and listen to some Dhamma talks. Sunakkhatta, son of the Lekkavis, heard a number of monks, it seems, have declared final knowledge in the presence of the Blessed One thus. We understand birth is destroyed. The holy life has been lived. What had to be done has been done. There is no more coming to any state of being. Then Sunakkhatta, son of the Lekkavis, went to the Blessed One after paying homage to him, sat down at one side and said to the Blessed One, I have heard, Venerable Sir, that a number of monks have declared final knowledge in the presence of the Blessed One. Did they do so rightly, or are some monks here who declared final knowledge because they overestimated themselves? When those monks, Sunakkhatta, declared final knowledge in my presence, there were some monks who declared final knowledge rightly, and there were some who declared final knowledge because they overestimated themselves. Therein, when monks declare final knowledge rightly, their declaration is true. But when monks declare final knowledge because they overestimate themselves, the Tathagata thinks, I should teach them the Dhamma. Thus, it is in this case, Sunakkhatta, that the Tathagata thinks, I should teach them the Dhamma. But some misguided men here formulate a question, come to the Tathagata and ask it. He's still cuffing him up a bit. In that case, Sunakkhatta, the Tathagata has thought I should teach them the Dhamma, and he changes his mind. This is the time, Blessed One, this is the time, Sublime One, for the Blessed One to teach the Dhamma. Having heard it from the Blessed One, the monks will remember it. Then listen, Sunakkhatta, and attend closely to what I shall say. Yes, Venerable Sir, Sunakkhatta, son of the Lekkavis, replied to the Blessed One. The Blessed One said this, there are, Sunakkhatta, these 5 chords of sensual pleasure. What are the 5? Forms cognizable by the eyes that are wished for, desired, agreeable and likable, connected with sensual desire and inviting lust. Sounds cognizable by the ear that are wished for, desired, agreeable and likable, connected with sensual desire and inviting lust. Odors cognizable by the knows, that our wished-for, desired, agreeable, and likable connected with sensual desire and inviting lust. Flavors cognizable by the tongue that are wished-for, desired, agreeable, and likable connected with sensual desire and inviting lust. Tangibles cognizable by the body that are wished-for, desired, agreeable, and likable connected with sensual desire and inviting lust. These are the 5 chords of sensual pleasure. It is possible, Sunakkhatta, that some person here may be intent on worldly material things. When a person is intent on worldly material things, only talk concerning that interests him, and his thinking and pondering are in line with that. And he associates with that kind of person. He finds satisfaction in that. But when talk about the imperturbable is going on, he will not listen to it or give ear or exert his mind to understand it. He does not associate with that kind of person, and he does not find satisfaction in that. Suppose, Sunakkhatta, a man had left his own village or town for a long time ago, and he were to see another man who has only recently left that village or town. He would ask that man whether the people of that village or town were safe, prosperous, and healthy. And that man would tell him whether the people of the village or town were safe and prosperous and healthy. What do you think, Sunakkhatta? Would that first man listen to him, give ear, and exert his mind to understand? Yes, Venerable Sir. So too, Sunakkhatta, it is possible that some person here may be intent on worldly material things. When a person is intent on worldly material things, I can't find where the ... dots were. Only talk concerning that interests him, and his thinking and pondering are in line with that, and he associates with that kind of person. And he finds satisfaction in that. But when talk about imperturbable is going on, he will not listen or give ear or exert his mind to understand it. He does not associate with that kind of person and does not find satisfaction in that. He should be understood as a person who is intent on worldly material things. It is possible, Sunakkhatta, that some person here may be intent on the imperturbable. When a person is intent on the imperturbable, only talk concerning that interests him, and his thinking and pondering are in line with that, and he associates with that kind of person, and he finds satisfaction in that. But when talk on worldly material things is going on, he will not listen to it or give ear or exert his mind to understand it. He does not associate with that kind of person and does not find satisfaction in that. Now, this is a little bit tricky because if you have some kind of attainment, whether you get into jhana or not, if you start talking with people that are more interested in material things, they don't want to hear about meditation. They don't want to hear about any kind of attainment. It means nothing to them, so it's just wasted words. When I first started meditating, and I went to a retreat center, and then I went home for a little while. And my family asked me where I'd been, and I told them I was at a meditation center. And they didn't want to talk about it. They didn't want to find out what my experience was. So I just let them be. And to this day, they all know that I've done a lot of meditation, and I dress funny. And they still don't want to know. And I don't talk with them. Basically, I mean, they start talking about material things, I get bored real quick. But I'm not interested in what they're talking about. If you try to convince somebody that meditation is the way, that's the first mistake that you're going to make. You can't convince anybody else, especially family members, because they remember you when you were that tall, and they're not going to pay attention to you. So it's they might listen if you try to talk for a little while, but they don't think it's interesting. They don't find it helpful to them. But a few years ago, my mother died. And she was at home when she died, and she was 94 years old, so yeah, okay, that's fine. And the family was there. There was over 10 people there. There must have been 11 or 12, I can't remember. But what happened was, my mother was getting close to death. We knew it was going to happen that day, so I was just hanging out with her. And I started radiating equanimity. And they all had a very balanced mind. They all knew that I was doing something, but they didn't want to ask what it was, because they're kind of afraid of anything other than Christian praise the Lord kind of thing. And when my mother finally died, David just reset my clock, and it reminded me of the time that my mother died, which was kind of an interesting thing. She died on her mother's birthday. And she died at 3:33.
And it's 6:33 right now.
Threes are big today. And it was very interesting because right after she died, we all just sat together, and I kept radiating loving kindness and equanimity to everyone, and they had this very balanced mind for 5 or 10 minutes. And then my sister-in-law said something to the effect, I don't know whether to be happy or sad. And I said, well, now that Mom's died, your sadness isn't going to affect her. So if you want to start crying and doing that sort of thing, that's fine. Now, it's an interesting thing that you don't want to be sobbing and making all kinds of sad statements and unhappy statements when somebody is dying. You want them to die with an uplifted mind so that they'll have a peaceful existence after they leave. But after they've gone, then it doesn't matter. They'll hang out for a little while after that, and then they'll go away. And I had a niece that came up to me after my mother died, and she said, "Well, where is she reborn?" And I said, "She's in a Devaloka." And that's where she was reborn. She was reborn in the Tusita heaven. She was an extremely generous, kind, compassionate person her whole life. So she had a good rebirth because of that. And don't ask me how I know. I just know that that's where she was reborn. It just came into my mind that that was it. So nobody else ask me about those kind of things. I don't know. Just as a yellow leaf has fallen from its stalk, it's incapable of becoming green again, so too, Sunakkhatta, when a person is intent on the imperturbable, he has shed the fetter of the worldly material things. He should be understood as a person detached from the fetter of worldly material things, who's intent on the imperturbable. So the only time in my family that I will answer anything about meditation is if they directly ask. I can't hear you.
Do you want to feel like the question's sincere as well?
Well,
Sometimes you might feel like they're asking a loaded question.
that's your choice. But I always wait to see. I wait and see what they have to say. And sometimes it's, well, doesn't that go against the Bible? And I tell them that when I was with people that were dying, I was reading from the Bible. I don't care what the holy book I use. And most of the time they go along with that sort of thing, but they don't question deeply. They don't question, what were you doing while Mom was dying? They don't ask those kind of questions. So that's fine. It is possible, Sunakkhatta, that some person here may be intent on the base of nothingness. When a person is intent on the base of nothingness, only talk concerning that interests him, and his thinking and pondering are in line with that, and he associates with that kind of person, and he finds satisfaction in that. Now, this is an interesting thing because almost everybody that does meditation, they say you're never supposed to talk about your attainments. And because one of the Parachika rules is falsely claiming that you get into one jhana or another, or you get to one attainment or another, just so you can get some kind of material possession out of it. That's a rule for the monks. It's not a rule for laymen. Laymen can talk about that, but you have to pick out the kind of person that's at about the same level as you are, so that you can really discuss it. And you can teach each other wonderful lessons when you start doing that. When I was in Burma doing all of the straight vipassana, I'd get together with a couple of my monk friends and we'd start comparing notes about what insights we were having and that sort of thing. And it was quite helpful. So not talking about what your attainment is, you have to be careful, and you can talk with somebody that understands what you're talking about, but don't try to convince anybody else that this is what your understanding is. So at first, when you start meditating, you start finding out that the people you used to like to hang out with, they were really into their material things, and they didn't want to talk about anything other than that. And those friends just kind of fade away. You're just not so interested in them. And you don't want to spend a lot of time with them because there's other things that you'd rather be doing. But when you get with somebody that does understand, some of your conversations can be absolutely brilliant, really good. Now, I had an interesting thing happen before I became a monk. I was living and working in San Francisco, and I went to a party. And I was trying to keep my precepts fairly well, and this party I went to, they were drinking beer, and they were smoking pot, and they were just talking nonsense. So I decided, well, these people are all suffering, so I'm going to start sending them loving and kind thoughts. So I started radiating metta, and they all got up, not at the same time, but they all got up and went into another room because they weren't comfortable with somebody that had a clear mind. And after, 10 or 15 minutes, I was sitting in the room by myself. And I'm thinking, well, okay, I might as well leave. But as I was getting ready to leave, somebody came from the other room and came back in, and we started talking. And we had a great conversation. Before long, there was 2 or 3 other people that came back into the room, and they weren't interested in smoking pot and drinking beer. They were just there with their partners, whoever they happened to be. And we had a great spiritual discussion. But people that aren't interested in it, you can't push it on them. You can't try to convince them. You just let them be. And that works out pretty good. But when talk about the imperturbable is going on, other people will not listen to it or give ear to it or exert their mind to understand it. He does not associate with that kind of person and does not find satisfaction in that. Because it's beyond their scope of understanding. And most people are really a lot more comfortable just talking nonsense stuff. Just as a thick stone that is split in two cannot be joined together again, so too Sunakkhatta. When a person is intent on the base of nothingness, his fetter of the imperturbable has been split. He should be understood as a person detached from the fetter of the imperturbable, who is intent on the base of nothingness. Now, the imperturbable in another sutta, the one right after this, is talking about the imperturbable being the fourth jhana. So somebody in the fourth jhana, and you're talking to them about the realm of nothingness, they won't understand what you're talking about so much. You can talk to them about the fourth jhana because that's their experience. But they won't understand what the base of nothingness really is. I had an interesting student that he was getting up into the realm of nothingness, the realm of neither perception nor non-perception, and he came to me one day and he said, every time you give a Dhamma talk and talk about these different levels, what you're saying is exactly true, but it's not even close to the actual experience. So what we're starting to discuss here is the realm of nothingness. I can describe to you what you need to stay with your object of meditation and what your object of meditation is, and you need to what you need to do to progress, but it's not even close to the actual experience. Every word that you use is a concept. So verbalization doesn't work when you're talking about direct experience, because it's beyond concepts. It is the actual experience, and that's what I try to help you to get to with these different descriptions that I use, but it's not going to be the same as I describe it. It's going to be somewhat different. But it's close enough that you got the idea. This is why we have to stop letting go of our thinking so much. Well, he said this, or she said that. It doesn't matter what they said. What is your direct experience? The thing that attracted me to Buddhism so much was the self-responsibility. So the self-responsibility is really important. And you thank me for helping you to get one place or another, and I thank you for doing it. Because you're doing the actual work and you're teaching yourself. You are your own teachers. And when a painful thing comes up, what do you do with that? What's your habitual tendency, your habitual emotional tendency? Well, you always try to think the feeling, and it doesn't work. The feeling can be painful, but it's only a painful feeling, so what? It's just there. If you don't make a big deal out of it in your mind, with all of your verbalization and all of your trying to control the feeling with your thoughts, if you don't get caught up in that trap, then you can let it be there by itself and it doesn't hurt so much. And eventually it will go away by itself when you have that balance of mind. But anytime you get caught up in any kind of, it doesn't matter whether it's a mental feeling or a physical feeling, you need to allow it to be there by itself. Okay? The release step is incredibly important, but not as important as the relaxed step is. Have you noticed that when you use the 6 R's, there's a clear spot right behind that, where your mind isn't thinking, where your mind is bright and clear, and very alert as to what's happening in the present. And you have a pure mind because you've let go of craving. And with that pure mind, you keep coming back to your object of meditation, the hindrances, the things that pull your attention away and cause you to get emotional and all of that sort of thing is going to stop happening so much because you're purifying your mind. That's why the 6 R's are very, very important. It is possible, Sunakkhatta, that some person here may be intent on the base of neither perception nor non-perception. When a person is intent on the base of neither perception nor non-perception, only talk concerning that interests him. And his thinking and pondering are in line with that, and he associates with that kind of person, and he finds satisfaction in that. But when talk about the base of nothingness is going on, he will not listen to it, give it ear, or exert his mind. He does not associate with that kind of person. I don't find that to be necessarily true. Once you get into neither nothingness or neither perception or non-perception, you can discuss with each other and you understand each other. But there are some things about neither perception nor non-perception that don't happen when you're in nothingness, because mind is becoming very subtle. Now, when you get to that level, I tell you about being able to watch the small little movements of mind's attention. And 6 are right there. Just relax into that. Let it be there by itself. What you're starting to see is different links of dependent origination. And we'll get into that a little bit later. So, if you're doing the forgiveness meditation, don't be thinking about the links of dependent origination necessarily. You're practicing being able to see those, but you don't recognize it as such because a feeling comes up. And I don't like that feeling. And then the craving comes up, and then your story about why you like or dislike that feeling. And then you get into your habitual emotional tendency and take it personally, and you cause yourself immeasurable amounts of suffering. That is dependent origination too, when you're doing the forgiveness meditation. You're starting to sharpen up your mindfulness. You're able to see much more clearly how those things work. So, suppose a person has eaten some delicious food and throw it up. What do you think, Sunakkhatta? Could that man have any desire to eat that food again? What do you think the answer is? If I threw it up, I'm not going to do that again. No, Venerable Sir. Why is that? because that food is considered repulsive. So too, Sunakkhatta, when a person is intent on the base of neither perception nor non-perception, the fetter of the base of nothingness has been rejected. He should be understood as a person detached from the fetter at the base of nothingness, who is intent on the base of neither perception nor non-perception. It is possible, Sunakkhatta, that some person here may be completely intent on Nibbana. When a person is completely intent on Nibbana, only talk concerning that interests him, and his thinking and pondering are in line with that, and he associates only with that kind of person. He finds satisfaction in that. But when talk about the base of neither perception nor non-perception is going on, he will not listen to it or give ear or exert his mind to understand. It's always amazed me how people continually try to talk about Nibbana, and that's an unconditioned state. How can you talk about something with conditioned words and get any understanding? It has to be a direct experience. He does not associate with that kind of person, and he does not find satisfaction in that. Just as a palm tree with its top cut off is incapable of growing again, so too, Sunakkhatta, when a person is completely intent on Nibbana. Now this is an interesting thing, because you can be intent on Nibbana, but that also brings up longing for Nibbana, and that's the thing that'll stop it from happening. I had a person that at the last Easter retreat, before she had had an experience of becoming a Sotapanna. So she came to this retreat intent on having another experience. And after 4 or 5 days of, just so much pain and so much suffering, she was, I want to go home, I don't need this. And I started laughing because she was so caught up in her want to have the same experience that she couldn't get to it. And when I laughed, she got angry at me. And I said, well, are we longing for something? Do we want something to happen in the same way that it happened before? And that stopped her cold. And she started thinking about that. She said, well, I am kind of pushing a little bit too much. Well, yeah, that's a polite way of putting it. So I had her just allow it. I gave the sutta about becoming like water. Water is just going to travel downhill. And it comes up to a rock. Is it going to try to push that rock out of the way? No, it's going to just go around it and let it be there by itself. So I told her to be like water and allow all of these things to be by themselves. Don't be taking things personally.
Is that the one Restraint?
Yeah. So she started doing that. And I think it was the next day she came in and she said, she was all happy. Oh, I stopped pushing and I just started watching and look at what happened. The thing is, with these kind of stories, you can start expecting, well, I'm going to do the same thing, and it's not going to happen in the same way. It's going to happen in a different way. But the point is, she gave up her longing for that experience to happen again. And when she gave up trying to make that experience happen again is when it had the opportunity to come up and happen again. So the whole thing comes down to, you can be intent on Nibbana, but you're just pointing your mind in the direction you want to have a more wholesome mind. You want to have letting go of tensions and tightnesses and things like that. Letting go of identifying with your thoughts and your feelings and sensations and pains that arise. Every time you use the 6 R's, you are attaining Nibbana. Okay? It's mundane to be sure, but if you do the mundane often enough, the super-mundane has an opportunity to arise. What you're doing is, every time you use the 6 R's, you're letting go of that burning craving. I want. Or I don't want, as the case may be. Doesn't matter. Same coin, different sides. You have to treat it in the same way and relax into it and not get so caught up in it. And the more you stop being serious with trying to attain something, the easier it is to attain. Okay, his fetter of the base of neither perception nor non-perception has been cut off. Cut at the root, made like a palm stump, done away with so that there's no longer subject to future arising. He should be understood as a person detached from the fetter of neither perception nor non-perception, who is completely intent on Nibbana. It is possible, Sunakkhatta, that some person here might think thus: craving has been called an arrow by the recluse. The poisonous humor of ignorance is spread about by desire, lust, and ill will. That arrow of craving has to be removed from me. The poisonous humor of ignorance has to be expelled. I am one who is completely intent on Nibbana. Since he conceives himself thus, though it is contrary to fact, he might pursue those things that are unsuitable for one completely intent on Nibbana. He might pursue the sight of unsuitable forms with the eye. He might pursue unsuitable sounds with the ears, unsuitable odors with the nose, unsuitable flavors with the tongue, unsuitable tangibles with the body, or unsuitable mind objects with mind. When he pursues the sight of unsuitable forms with his eye, and going through that the 6 faculties again, lust invades his mind. Now this is something that's pretty interesting, because I've been around people that they claim they have attained Nibbana, but they still break precepts. They still do things that are unsuitable. They do things that make lust arise. They can lose that attainment because you're just ignoring everything. You're ignoring the thing that got you there. Oh, now I can go back to being the way I was. So I'm going to watch pornographic movies, and I'm going to eat all kinds of things that I shouldn't be eating, and getting into drugs and alcohol a little bit. That's okay. I'm awakened. Well, guess who loses their attainment? Now, when you have the fruition, that's when the attainment is set. And you won't do those kind of things anymore. Suppose, Sunakkhatta, a man were wounded by an arrow thickly smeared with poison, and his friends and companions, his kinsmen and relatives, brought a surgeon. The surgeon would cut out the opening of the wound with a knife, then would probe for the arrow with a probe. Then he would pull out the arrow and would expel the poisonous humor, leaving a trace of it behind. Now this is what I'm talking about with all the unsuitable. Okay? Thinking that no trace was left behind, he would say, "Good man, the arrow has been pulled out from you, the poisonous humor has been expelled, with no trace left behind, and it's incapable of harming you. Eat only suitable food. Do not eat unsuitable food, or else the wound would separate. From time to time, wash the wound. From time to time, anoint its opening, so that the pus and blood do not cover the opening of the wound. Do not walk around in the wind and the sun, or else dust and dirt may infect the opening wound. Take care of your wound, good man. See to it that the wound heals." The man would think, the arrow has been pulled out. That's what we're talking about again. I have this attainment. I don't have to worry about anything ever again, because now I'm a Sotapanna. The poisonous humor has been expelled with no trace left behind, but there is a trace left behind, and is incapable of harming me. He would eat unsuitable food, the wound would suppurate. He would not wash the wound from time to time, and would not annoy its opening from time to time, and pus and blood would cover the opening of the wound. He would walk around in the wind and the sun, and dust and dirt would infect the opening of the wound. He would not take care of his wound, nor would he see to it that the wound heals. Then, both because he does what is unsuitable, and because the trace was left behind, when the foul poisonous humor was expelled, the wound would swell, and its swelling would incur death or deadly suffering. So too, Sunakkhatta, it is possible that some monk here might think craving has been called an arrow by the recluse. The poisonous humor of ignorance is spread about by desire, lust, and ill will. That arrow of craving has been removed from me, the poisonous humor of ignorance has been expelled. I am one who is completely intent on Nibbana, because it conceives himself thus. Though it's contrary to fact, he might pursue things that are unsuitable. For one completely intent on Nibbana. With his mind invaded by lust, he would incur death or deadly suffering. For it is death in the disciple of Noble One, Sunakkhatta, when one abandons training and reverts to the low life. It is a deadly suffering when one commits some defiled offense. That's why I say you've got to be careful with your precepts, because you can still get into your old habit of gossip or wrong speech or whatever, and you're going to lose your attainment because of that, unless you get to the fruition of Sotapanna. Then you won't do that anymore. It is possible, Sunakkhatta, that some monk here might think thus: craving has been called an arrow by the recluse, the poisonous humor of ignorance is spread about by desire, lust, and ill will. The arrow of craving has been removed from me, the poisonous humor of ignorance has been expelled. I am one who is completely intent on Nibbana. Being one who really is intent on Nibbana would not pursue those things unsuitable for one completely intent on Nibbana. It would not pursue the sight of unsuitable forms by the eye. He would not pursue unsuitable sounds with the ear, unsuitable odors with the nose, unsuitable flavors with the tongue, unsuitable tangibles with the body, unsuitable mind objects with mind, because he does not pursue the sight of unsuitable forms with the eye or any of the other sense faculties. Lust does not invade his mind and remain. Because his mind is not invaded by lust, he would not incur death or deadly suffering. Suppose, Sunakkhatta, a man were wounded by an arrow thickly smeared with poison, and his friends and his companions, his kinsmen and relatives, brought a surgeon. The surgeon would cut around the opening of the wound with a knife. Then he would probe for the arrow with the probe. Then he would pull out the arrow and would expel the poisonous humor without leaving a trace of it behind. Knowing that no trace was left behind, he would say, "Good man, the arrow has been pulled out from you, the poisonous humor has been expelled, with no trace left behind, and it is incapable of harming you. Eat only suitable food. Do not eat unsuitable food, or else the wound would suppurate. From time to time, wash the wound. From time to time, anoint its opening, so that pus and blood could not cover the opening of the wound. Do not walk around in the wind and the sun, or else dust and dirt might infect the opening of the wound. Take care of your wound, good man, and see to it that it heals well. The man would think the arrow has been pulled out from me. The poisonous humor has been expelled with no trace left behind. It is incapable of harming me. He would eat very suitable food, and the wound would not suppurate. From time to time he would wash the wound, from time to time he would anoint its opening, and pus and blood would not cover the opening of the wound. He would not walk around in the wind and sun, and dust and dirt would not infect the opening of the wound. He would take care of his wound, and he would see to it that the wound heals. Then, because he does what is suitable, and because no trace was left behind, when the foul, poisonous humor was expelled, the wound would heal. And because it had healed and was covered with skin, he would not incur death or deadly suffering. So too, Sunakkhatta, it is possible that some monk here might think craving has been called an arrow by the recluse. The poisonous humor of ignorance is spread about by desire, lust, and ill will. That arrow of craving has been pulled out from me. The poisonous humor of ignorance has been expelled. I am one who is completely intent on Nibbana. Being one who is really intent on Nibbana, he would not pursue those things unsuitable for one completely intent on Nibbana. Because his mind is not invaded by lust, he would not incur death or deadly suffering. Sunakkhatta, I've given the simile in order to convey a meaning. This is the meaning here. Wound is a term for the 6 internal bases. Poisonous humor is a term for ignorance. Arrow is a term for craving. Probe is the term for mindfulness. Knife is a term for noble wisdom. Surgeon is a term for the Tathagata, the accomplished one, the fully awakened one. That monk, Sunakkhatta, is one who practices restraint of the 6 bases of contact, having understood that the acquisition is the root of suffering. Being acquisitionalist, liberated in the destruction of the acquisitions, it is not possible that he would direct his body or arouse his mind towards any acquisition. Suppose, Sunakkhatta, there were a bronze cup of beverage possessing good color, smell, and taste, but it is mixed with a poison. And a man came who wanted to live, not to die, who wanted pleasure and recoiled from pain. What do you think, Sunakkhatta? Would that man drink that cup of beverage, knowing if I drink it I will incur death or deadly suffering? No, venerable sir. So too, that monk is one who practices restraint of the 6 bases of contact, having understood the acquisition is the root of suffering. Acquisition means taking it personally. Being acquisitionalist, I can't say that correctly, liberated in the destruction of acquisitions, it is not possible that he would direct his body or arouse his mind towards any acquisition. no more craving. Suppose, Sunakkhatta, there was a deadly poisonous snake, and a man who wanted to live, not to die, who wanted pleasure and recoiled from pain. What do you think, Sunakkhatta? Would that man give that deadly poisonous snake in his hand or thumb, knowing, if I'm bitten by him, I will incur death or deadly suffering? No, venerable sir, so too when a monk practices restraint of the 6 bases of contact, and having understood that attainment is the root of suffering, it is without attachment, liberated by the destruction of the attachment. It is not possible that he would direct his body or mind towards any object of attachment. This is what the Blessed One said. Sunakkhatta, the son of the Lekhavis, was satisfied and delighted in the Blessed One's words. So keeping your precepts, not getting over carried away with the 6 sense doors. By not getting carried away, doesn't mean that you don't have those sense doors anymore. You do have them, but you don't get caught up in thinking about them, how you like the sight. As soon as you take that personally, then your mind is going to start coming up in a sneaky way to think about other things and pull you away from your object of meditation. So you have to let that go. That's how you guard the doors of the sense or the doors of sense contact. And you notice one of those contacts is mind objects. How much do you get caught up in that? How much does it affect the way you see the world around you in a negative way? So what we have to do is be able to recognize that our mind is playing this game again. And it is a game if you make it a game. And you can have a lot of fun with it, and you can kind of laugh with how crazy your mind is. And the more you laugh, the less you take it personally. And when you let go and don't take it personally anymore, your mind gets more clear. But taking these old habitual tendencies as being yours, I'm always this way. That's one of the things that I really enjoy when I get a couple together and the man will say something and then the woman will say, well, you always say that. Well, guess what? Who has an attachment? Who doesn't like it? Who wants it to be different? That's a great opportunity to see how mind always acts in the same way. But how much do you expect the results to be different? And when they're not, how much do you not like that and want to push it away even more? And the more you think and ponder on it, the more it's going to keep coming up. So learn from that and don't treat it in the same way. Your forgiveness meditation, your using the 6 R's, your forgiveness of having your mind do that. That means you're changing how you see the world. And that change can be a very positive change as you use the 6 R's and keep forgiving it. You're letting go of an old attachment and you make it into a game. You don't get over serious with this stuff, because getting over serious says, what am I taking personally? What am I trying to control? What don't I like? Oh, my mind always does that. Your mind never always does anything unless you keep feeding it. What do you feed it with? Your attention. Then it's going to keep getting better and better. That's why I say don't make a big deal out of things. Yeah, this is happening again. So, never mind. It's only it's only my attachment that's causing this to arise again, so why don't we try something different? And let it go. And relax. And smile with it and have fun with it instead of trying to push it around and make things happen in a different way. So the more you can practice like this, the faster your progress becomes. That's just the way it works. So, do you have any questions? Yeah.
So, I don't know, just I guess a comment on what's going on. More and more now, these mind objects come and it's kind of just like it's less and less feeling like a personal thing. It's like just, okay.
Yeah.
Scram.
No, don't, 6R.
Well, 6R. Right?
And forgive it for coming up.
Right. It just feels like it's just like...
Yeah, but it's not so personal anymore. You see, you're starting to purify your mind. And you're starting to see the world in a different way. Look at your habits, your habitual tendencies. And does it make you happy to do that? To get stressed out because somebody's putting pressure on you? Does that make you happy? Well, then why take it personally? You're going to become more and more efficient at what you do while you're doing it if you don't have the distraction of that kind of craving. And it gets to be kind of a show, a movie that's just playing in your mind. And you can, why don't you make that movie a comedy? Right? And kind of laugh with it and go, God, you'd think this mind would really do something that was original, but it keeps going back to the same thing. How dumb is that? And you're not dumb. You're very intelligent because you're doing the practice in the right way. But how many times do you have worry come up? I don't know if I'm doing it right or not. Can you laugh with that? You know you're doing it right because you're starting to see results. Then why worry whether it's perfect or not? No need. So, continue on. Everything is going along just great. Just realize that your old habitual tendency of having worry and all of this kind of stuff is just a game that your mind is playing, and, well, I don't need to play that game anymore. I can have fun doing something else. Right? Any other question? It's amazing how quiet it gets when I say that. Why don't we share some merit? May suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share this merit that we've thus acquired for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas and nagas of mighty power, share this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddhist dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.